Okay, Bonjour Gakanawia. Hello, everyone. Jean Nadijnakas. Mayangan and Dodam, Kitchenuhmaykoosib Inninuwug. My name is Jean. I come from a place called Big Trout Lake, and I'm from the Wolf Clan. And yeah, visiting Toronto. My arts practice, I guess I'm a visual artist, and I do beadwork, and I'm also a high tanner. So this solo exhibition came about because Linda Grisani, the curator, approached me and asked me if I wanted to do this with her. So that's what we did. We've been visiting for the last couple of years, and what came of our visits is reflected in this exhibition. Um, the one piece is called Reciprocity, and what that is it's a reflection of my experience as a high tanner. So when I was a young child, um, my my grandfather smelled of moosehide. I could smell the scent of smoked hide when he was around, which wasn't very often, but it had a lasting impact on um, my being. So fast forward to being in my 40s, I decided to learn how to tan moose hides. And it has been very fulfilling, it's been very satisfying. And I've had many teachers, many helpers along this journey. So, this work that's on the wall called Reciprocity is my gratitude and my thanks to these people. And it also gives people coming through a sense of like the beginning and the continual flow of this work that will just keep going. I'm just trying to visualize like the wall right now, but there's a pair of moccasins that were mine when I was a toddler. So my auntie would have made those for me to wear, and they would have been lived. And you continue along the wall, and there's a larger pair, which are mine that I made about 2 years ago, and they're also lived. So this what I struggled with in this exhibition was having an exhibition actually, because I feel like the work that I do very much lives. Everything that I make has a life and goes out into the world and exists however it needs to. But it's not very often that it's on a wall, um, sitting on a wall. So that was something. Um, it's just different, but it's a for me. I see that it's a way for me to tell my story and what I'm doing in my community. Yeah. The video is the result of me spending 4 days learning how to use video. So I worked with a group of people. It was like a training session where about 10 of us sat together, and we all had the opportunity to um, pick something that we wanted to talk about. So I, of course, chose high tanning and wanted to sort of share the process of what we do and why we do it. So a lot of people wonder, how long does it take? How do you do it? My hope was that the video would help people understand the process and the time and the love that goes into making leather. Yeah. So Anikoobijikewin, um, it means in the Anishnabe language, very loosely. I want to state that I'm not a fluent speaker, but my understanding of this word is that it's like linking from the past, the present, into the future. So it's like connecting, joining. It's just a continual. It's just a continuum of it could be of anything. So I guess I think of like my ancestors who did this work to provide for family, to provide food, to provide clothing, to provide tools, working with the moose. Um, they did all of this work and they passed all of these skills and knowledge down up until me knowing how to do it. So I think that's very important to acknowledge. It's a very powerful word. Um, yeah, that's it. Well, being a bead worker, I hand stitch beads onto to fabric and leather. In the beginning stages of my practice, I would use commercial hide because that's what I had access to, just to go into a store and buy the commercial hide. So I discovered that it's very hard to sew by hand. The commercial hide is really difficult to get a needle through. So I started to learn about home tan hide. So that practice of tanning hides takes such a long time, but the end product is a piece of leather that has been stretched every which way so that there is no more stretch, and you can easily put a needle through like effortlessly. So that's when a shift happened for me, was learning how to make my own leather. So I no longer have to go into a store. I make it myself. Yeah. I guess the process is lengthy. So I think to be a high tanner, you need to have determination, perseverance, and patience, and time. So the process is yearly. It's a year. It takes a year to process a hide. So the work is done seasonally. For example, right now hunters are out in the bush and they're 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 getting moose, and so this is the act of reciprocity, which is so integral to the exhibition. Is that the hunters, they do work that I don't do, and I have so much respect for them because they take the hide off in the bush and they bring it back to us. They bring the hides to the hide tanners, and then they're happy that we're taking them because we're honoring the hide, because they don't do that part. So it's really really nice. Um, just that reciprocity is out of love for the moose and honoring it and paying it the respect that it deserves, as it provides everything for us. So when the hide arrives, we need to take the meat and the fat off of it. So the ladies come together and we come with our knives and we take the meat and the fat off, and then we flip it over and we take the hair off. So we use a knife to like shave the hair, and so that makes it a lot lighter. We put holes onto the sides of the hide and then we rack it. So we essentially put it onto a frame and then let it dry. So that being said, there are several ways to do hides. You can wet scrape, dry scrape, free scrape. So it's a little tricky for me to go into all of the details. But essentially the first step is to get your meat and fat off, the hair off, and then depends on what you want to do with it next. If you want to wet scrape it, you would put it in water. If you want to dry scrape it, you rack it until it gets dry. And then, so for me, what I like to do is I'll do that step and then I wait until the winter time. So I wait until it's like at least -12 outside. The colder, the better. And then I soak it in water, put it on a rack, and zap it outside so it freezes. And then we scrape the membrane and the grain off of both sides of the hide. And once you've done that, you can make a brain paste out of the moose brain, and you add, and also again, lots of different ways to do things, lots of different recipes. But the base is the moose brain, some soap, and some fat, a fat that's edible. You mix these things together and massage onto the hide. So it's like a lotion that absorbs into the moose hide, reintroducing fat to the hide to help it to get soft. Fold it up, put it away for the rest of the winter, and then in the summertime or when spring comes, when it gets warm out, you bring it out and you start the softening process. And then once you get it soft, that's also very time intensive and labor oriented, and then you smoke it. and then you're done. That's like the quick version of like how to tan a hide. Yeah. And just like one little aspect of how to tan a hide. There's so many different ways to work your hides. Yeah. Okay. Well, my love is doing beadwork. It's something that I will always do until I no longer can. Um, Doing beadwork is super time intensive, so it takes a long time. And I ended up spending some time with a friend of mine, Captain Walter, who works with felt. And so we worked together on a big project, and we usually I do small works that are florals with beadwork. So what we did was we kind of like amplified what I do, and we made it big, but using the felt. And for me, it was like very freeing to do that because all of a sudden I went from working on this really tiny piece to cut using scissors and not having to sew. And we stitched things down, but it was like kind of like a basting, and yeah, it just felt really nice. So I don't think I'm going to become a felt worker, but it was just a bit of a shift and something different and fun for me to do. Yeah. But aside from that, I do have work right now, presently in a group exhibition called Radical Stitch at the National Gallery, which I'm very proud and honored to be a part of. That exhibition is touring. I'm not sure where it's touring to next, but my work is in that exhibition. Um, I guess the next work will be in Madabi at the Thunderberry Art Gallery. The Thunderberry Art Gallery is presently building their new spot at the waterfront. So when they open, um, they commissioned a few people to make new work for their collection. So I'll have work to present for that. But other than that, my goal is to make leather and create work and have like a really freeing experience just doing that. Not have my creativity be connected to obligatory things like having a show, which I think is great. Having a show is amazing, but for me, these things that get attached to my creativity really influence how I feel, and it's really important for me at this time of my life to really be feeling joy when I'm doing my work and not feeling like, oh, I have to get this done because I have a deadline or anything like that. I need to like not have happening anymore. So for me, that's like a really amazing realization for myself. So I'm excited for the next few years to see by giving that to myself. I think I'm probably going to be more creative than I ever have been in my entire life.